Hey Kev, let's follow this trail over here. This looks like there might be something waiting down there.
All right. Hey, wait a minute. Do you hear that?
Yeah, I thought it was just me. What the heck is that?
I don't know what that is. Whoa, do you smell that too?
That's unbelievable. Hey, look.
What the?
Hey, look, those branches are moving over there.
What the heck is that?
Holy cow, is that what I think it is? Look at that thing.
Oh my God.
It's a freaking Sasquatch. Welcome to the Bigfoot Terror in the Woods Sightings and Encounters podcast. I am your host, W.J. Sheehan. Hello, everybody, and welcome once again to our show. My name is W.J. Sheehan, author of the series Bigfoot Terror in the Woods Sightings and Encounters. 9 books available in paperback and audio formats at Amazon, Audible, iTunes. So go out and buy a couple of copies and have yourself a good old time, my friends. And without any further ado, may I introduce you to my brother and co-host, KJ Sheehan. Kev, how are you?
I'm doing great. How about you, Bill?
Fantastic. You know, I have to spend a couple of minutes here telling the folks what's transpired over the past few weeks. A couple of weeks ago, folks, I was on with Richard Syrett, S-Y-R-E-T-T. Richard Syrett, he's one of the co-hosts of Coast to Coast AM. And I did a little podcast with him on his podcast, Strange Planet. I encourage you to listen in on that. Richard's a good stand-up guy. I like him a lot. And Strange Planet, you could hear the interview I did over there. And Richard enjoyed the conversation so much, as did I, that he invited me on Coast that weekend. I was on with him on a Tuesday. I did the recording. It didn't air till like a week later.
And that's the radio show, right, Bill?
Right, Coast to Coast AM.
Right.
Now that was, because it airs out of Los Angeles, 10 to 1, I believe, something like that. I was on 1 to 3 East Coast time. And that was a good interview, too. So if you get a chance to log into Coast to Coast AM, you may want to pick that up as well. Really interesting stuff. And Kev, for you personally, a good friend of mine and a friend of the podcast, Rich, out in Washington State Way, wanted me to pass on to you his wife's and his appreciation for all of the hard work that you and I put into the creation of this show, the books and everything else. And he just wanted me to say to you that everything we do is greatly received and appreciated by them, and I'm sure many others around the globe.
And they actually mentioned me?
Yep, he made a specific request to tell KJ.
All right. Well, KJ is all fired up today because, folks, you may not know it, but I am a big hockey fan. And I live down here in North Carolina, about 600 miles away from my brother. And today we are hosting the NHL Winter Classic hockey game. So you may see me in a Bigfoot outfit on TV tonight if you turn on the game at 8 o'clock Eastern. But I am so fired up to watch a hockey game outdoors with 60,000 of my closest friends.
And I know all of them by name.
I do. And they're bringing a marching band too, Bill. So this is going to be quite the spectacle.
Man, I love that stuff.
So it's awesome. Awesome. Good stuff. And by the way, so as we jump into cryptids in the news and other oddities, a lot of you that are longtime listeners know that my brother and I rarely talk about or rarely discuss what we're going to talk about before we log in to record the show here. And so my brother doesn't know, so I'm just going to jump in with my lead-in. Balloons, UAPs, UFOs, F-22s, and Sidewinder missiles, oh my. I mean, come on, just what the hell is going on?
Yeah, it's I can tell already where you're going, and I kind of had a feeling you were going to launch into this.
No pun intended. I'm launching into it.
No sidewinders were used during the production of this podcast. Hey, Kev, before you dive in, and before I forget, folks, when you hear me saying the following account was given to me by KJ Sheehan, the names I am using are not the names of the people who recorded the accounts or the encounters with me. So, if you've seen something, say something, and have no fear whatsoever that I am going to use your name. Even if you tell me I can use your name, I will not use your name. And
Right.
I've told that to many people who've given me accounts, even in most recent days. So
Very cool.
when you hear me say, Joe Smith gave me the encounter, you may know somebody named Joe Smith, but no guy named Joe Smith told me that encounter. So have no fear. I don't want people to be hesitant in reaching out to me at BigfootTerrorInTheWoods.com and hit the contact link. Have no fear that I am going to use your name under any circumstances. And I just wanted to get that out there, Kev, before it slipped my mind and I forgot.
Oh, that's awesome, Bill. Awesome. But back to what's in the news. Come
Yeah.
on. We shot down 4 different balloons with F-22 Raptors, over the period of about a week. Like, what the heck is going on?
Yeah, very bizarre circumstances, man.
I mean, and I really can't tell what's going on because the first one, right, the first balloon was shot down over the Atlantic Ocean, close to the coast of North and South Carolina, right? Mm-hmm. And it came into the airspace, U.S. airspace in Alaska on January 28th, floated along Idaho, Montana, and over the Carolinas. And they said that the balloon was about the size of 3 school buses.
That's a big balloon.
Big balloon, and it was flying at an altitude of 60 to 65,000 feet.
Wow.
Yeah, so that's the first one, right? And they send up this F-22, right? Maybe not our most advanced fighter, but our second most advanced of the ones we know about.
Right.
Armed with Sidewinder missiles, and they blow this thing out of the sky. So, I checked it out, Bill. You know me, aviation guy like you. I'm like, man, doesn't the F-22 have a gun on it?
Yeah. I thought the same thing. How about a quick burst out of a 50 cal or something, you know?
So you'll be happy to. So, yeah, but, why not shoot a $500,000 or $1 million Sidewinder missile at a balloon, right? What the heck? So I checked it out. I'm like, well, maybe the F-22 doesn't have a gun. But, in fact, the F-22 has a 20-millimeter Gatling gun and a linear linkless ammunition feed system. That's how they describe it. So I'm pretty sure the F-22 could take down a balloon with a little burst from the Gatling gun.
Yeah, I was wondering the same thing. Why shoot an expensive missile at a balloon?
I mean, other than the fact it's fun, but,
Good practice, right?
But crazy stuff,
Yeah, now, I wonder why they didn't take these things down sooner. You think that it took them that long to figure out it was unknown and potentially harmful to us?
Well, this is part of the what the heck is going on question that I have. Now, there, of course, who knows if what the government is telling the newspapers and that is true, right? We certainly have no reason to think, I'm not a big conspiracy guy, as you know, Bill, but we have no reason to think that the Pentagon has to tell the New York Times in this case, or the Wall Street Journal, two of the sources I'm using for this podcast today, the truth about what's going on, right? Like, let's not think for a minute that they're obligated to tell them the truth.
Come on, aren't they?
What? No, but the story goes that they didn't see it because NORAD, right, the same folks that track Santa Claus, by the way, Christmas time, they have the sophisticated radar system and satellites and everything else, but it's really designed to see fast-moving objects entering our airspace, like, intercontinental ballistic missiles and stuff like that. So the theory is that the radar is not designed to pick up signatures of these very slow-moving crafts like balloons at 60,000 feet. And then once they saw this one come across the country and they got the signature, the radar signature of that, the one that they shot down off of North and South Carolina, the theory is that then they adjusted the radar aperture to alarm on objects just like this, and then they started seeing them over that week-long period. So that's the theory. I'm not saying that's the truth, though. Like, I'm interested, some of our listeners out there, what they think, of course. Especially if somebody out there is in the know.
Now, we don't know. I don't know if we'll ever really know if they've recovered anything yet from these balloons.
They did. There's some pictures of them in boats scooping up this stuff. Now, some of the stuff was not recovered. Like on February 10th, they said they shot down, and they said a UFO off Alaska, and they say that this U.S. fighter jet brought down this craft over the waters of Alaska. The object broke into pieces after being shot down and was most likely not a balloon, a Defense Department official said. And a White House official said that the object was the size of a small car. Right?
Now, these are separate incidents.
Separate,
from
all
the
in
balloons.
This week-long event. So that happened on February 10th, not that long ago. And then February 11th, a UFO was shot down over Canada by an American F-22 fighter over the Yukon Territory. So, of course, Canada's Prime Minister, Justin Trudeau, said it was okay for us to shoot it down because the Air Force was in the shop, apparently, on February 11th, the Canadian Air Force. Sorry, folks, that's a joke. But the Canadian official described this one as cylindrical and smaller than a quote-unquote spy balloon, and it was picked up on radar the day before as it passed over Alaska.
Really interesting, Kev. Obvious. I'm stating the obvious. In order to blow something to pieces, it had to have structure to it.
Well, that's the one of them, that one I think it was, they said was cylindrical.
Yeah.
It didn't look like a balloon where, we all saw the images of the first balloon, which was pretty cool, by the way. Some of those images that you saw taken with cameras over like Montana and that, it did look like a UFO, right? It's like this round, shiny thing up in the sky in the distance and not moving like a plane during the daytime. So I think that's an interesting fact right there, too, that, maybe this is something that's seen at times,
Yeah. When I saw the pictures of the balloon, it brought me back to one of my UFO encounters out at Shinnecock during the daytime, where I saw these two perfectly spherical. They seemed to be alive. They were like vibrating, but they had perfect borders, no smoke, no indication of anything outside of them being visible. And they were blinking in and out. They would fizzle down to nothing and then kind of boop, reappear and grow back to their size with these perfect borders over the water. And it looked a lot like the balloon. And I'm not saying these things were balloons.
Right.
Believe me, folks, they were not balloons.
Right.
But it reminded me of that shape and that appearance.
Yep.
Interesting.
Yeah, so then the last one that we know about was shot down February 12th, the next day, over Lake Huron, again in the northern U.S., or this one in the northern U.S. They said it first appeared the day before in Montana on February 11th and reappeared the next day before being shot down over Lake Huron. And they said the object, which was flying at about 20,000 feet, had an octagonal structure with strings hanging off of it, but had no discernible payload, U.S. officials said. Mm-hmm. And, just super weird.
Yeah. Yeah, we've never heard of this before in our lifetime, Kev, such a thing.
No. And then, they say it's unclear, this is what the government said, that it's unclear what the objects were, what their purpose was, or who sent them. However, in interviews on February 15th, U.S. officials said that they increasingly believe that the objects were, get this, unlikely to be surveillance devices.
Yeah, so if they're not surveillance devices, what the heck are they?
Exactly. I couldn't have said it better. I'm like, what the heck is going on? And if they're not a threat, why are we shooting Sidewinder missiles at them? Well, when you're chasing the unknown, perhaps in ignorance, perhaps not, they perceive them in their unknown status as worthy of being taken out of the sky. Better we don't have them flying around us than we do. I mean, that was obviously the presumptive leap that they made to take them out, that irregardless, let's get rid of them. I mean, I'm not saying we shouldn't shoot them down, believe me.
Yeah.
I'm just saying, okay, now all of a sudden, in the beginning, they were definitely Chinese spy balloons, and now they don't know what they were. Like that, I mean, that just sounds suspicious to me. I'm sorry. That's just me.
Yeah, well, remember the old Roswell story where the headline read UFO shot down or UFO crashed to Earth, and the next day they had pictures of the guy standing crouched down and saying it was a weather balloon, and he had pieces of a weather balloon laying next to him and around him. That was total.
And there's another theory on that whole thing, right? Is that I'm sure you've seen this one, maybe you haven't, but that back then in the 50s, right, when the Roswell UFO incident happened, the United States was testing spy balloons to go over Russia. Mm-hmm. And they were testing them out there, in Roswell, in the Roswell area. And they would fly like this first balloon at 60,000 feet over Russia and take pictures, before they had like the U-2 and stuff like that, or maybe in addition to the U-2 spy plane. So they had that, and then they crashed out there, but they didn't want the public to know that we had these spy balloons and that we were testing them, because then Russia would know. And there's a theory that they started this UFO story. The government did. Mm-hmm. Isn't that something?
Yeah, well, I don't know. I'm not buying it.
I know, but, it comes back to my original thesis of we can't believe what they're telling us.
Yeah, there's no doubt.
I'm not a conspiracy theory person, folks. I'm just saying that, if it's a matter of national defense, they're not necessarily going to tell us the truth.
Yeah, and, you can't blame them for doing that. This whole spy, counter spy, espionage thing is exactly what it is.
It's real. Yeah, it's real.
It's real, and it's ongoing, and it's not going away. So you can rest assured that more of the same is coming down the pipe.
No doubt about it. So Bill, that's cryptids in the news and other oddities this week. And I was hoping. I've been watching it, of course, since they shot one down off the coast here in North Carolina, and following it across the country prior to that. And I'm like, what the heck is going on? I've been reading everything, searching everything. I can't find rhyme or reason to this. So other than there was a really funny meme out there. I don't know if you saw this. When they shot down the first one, it said, North Carolina fishermen find remnants of Chinese spy balloon. And it had a picture of probably two of my neighbors out at the coast standing on the beach holding up this deflated, dirty Winnie the Pooh balloon that they found on the beach. Like one of those 3-foot balloons you buy in the supermarket.
Yeah,
dirty Winnie the Pooh balloon. I was laughing out loud when I saw that.
Right, and under the image of Winnie the Pooh, it said in Chinese, Winnie the Pooh.
That Sidewinder missile got the best of Pooh Bear.
Now let me say this, man, and I've felt this way for a long time. With the way the Chinese government runs itself and its oppression of its people and everything else, these dudes can't be trusted. And I don't care what anybody says. I wouldn't trust them for anything under any circumstances. You want to talk about lying and espionage and whatnot. I don't even think these guys can tell the truth if they wanted to.
Yeah. So, folks, that was my brother, in case the Chinese are listening, which I'm sure they are. That was my brother, WJ, not KJ. Please don't come to my house tonight.
That's right. That's right. Bring it on, sucker. All right, so I have a really kind of creepy Bigfoot encounter. Was told to me by Ed and Susan Zabiella, two hikers who came across a little more than they bargained for while hiking below Desolation Butte. And this is what the couple had to say about their encounter of July of 1997. In 1997, we had planned a family campout near Olive Lake in Oregon. I worked at the time with a fellow who raved about this area and had been there several times himself. So we planned a week, packing up everything we would need for this little vacation in the woods. At the time, our two children, Sophia and little Eddie, who were 12 and 16 years old, respectively, were in excellent physical condition, both being very athletic, and so we had planned to do an extensive amount of exploration in the form of hiking. On the fourth day of our campout, we headed north into the Umatilla National Forest, with our goal for the day being the base of Desolation Butte, a 7,000-foot mountain to our northwest. We had hiked about 4 miles, crossing over what I would say was a secondary road, with the butte now dead north of us. As we now were re-entering the wilderness to continue our hike, we were coming into an area of the woods that was very undulating. It was up and down and all around walk where our forward visit. It was an up and down and all around walk where our forward visibility was extremely limited as far as what we could see ahead of us. For the most part, we were following some apparent game trails as well as being in some open areas in the trees. Now, I have to tell you, Before I get into what happened next, because it all unfolded so quickly, that each of us was carrying a canister of bear spray. Between reading the instructions and coaching the kids in its use, I remember that the spray had an effective range of 20 to 40 feet, and that to be truly effective, it needed to contact the eyes and the nose. These were basically large canisters of pepper spray. Our family at the time was in what I would call quiet mode. In other words, during the hike, there were times when we were jabbering like magpies, and at other times we were just quiet, focusing on the task at hand and taking in the surroundings. This moment was one of the latter. What happened next was so frightening, and it happened so quickly that, frankly, it was hard to believe. I was leading our little troop and had quite literally just stepped over a small rise in the trail we were following, which dipped down to our left. I heard a short grunt, which was followed by an enormous Sasquatch jumping out of the brush about 40 or 50 feet ahead of us. Sophia screamed, and when she did, the creature let out a growl. It then snarled at me, showing its teeth. My wife had grabbed little Eddie as I pulled my spray canister from my belt. The beast was snarling at me with the evilest grin you could imagine, as I had already brought the canister into position to fire it if it moved any closer. I said to the family to back away slowly, and Susan said, "We're not leaving you." All of them had their canisters out. As this was happening, my eyes had glanced down to the left on the ground where the creature had come from, and I could see the fresh, bloodied carcass of some type of animal lying on the ground. The beast's face around its jowls was wet with what I knew was blood. We had more than likely stumbled upon this creature as it was engaged in eating a kill, and it was none too happy about us being there. Perhaps it was just warning us off of its kill, like most predatory creatures would. The creature was snarling and curling its lips, making quick forward movements with its upper body in a way that seemed to be somewhat of a fake, that it was about to jump or leap in our direction. I guess the best way to describe it would be that of a bluff. He looked like a prize fighter who was faking a left to throw a right, if that makes any sense. I took one slow step backwards and told the others to start doing so themselves. And as we did, this beast took one large quick step towards us, and I pulled the trigger on the canister. The cloud came out in a torrent, but seemed to fall short of the mark and had emptied rather quickly. I then told Sophia to give me her canister. When the cloud came pouring out in the direction of the beast, it lurched backwards, apparently being spooked by what had happened. Then, as quickly as it had begun, it snarled again, clenched its fist, and stepped back to its right to reach down to grab the animal, disappearing into the trees. We could hear some thrashing and snapping noises as it moved away, and we turned to make our own escape while the getting was good. I was taking the rear now, walking with one eye over my shoulder and telling the others to try to move quickly and carefully. We reached a place where we had crossed the secondary road of which I spoke earlier. Now, having reached the road, we saw a solitary hiker coming in our direction. He was carrying a backpack and a long walking stick, so we waited for him. As he got closer, he hailed a hello to us, and we started to walk towards him. Sophia was clutching my wife in such a way that I guess he could tell something was wrong, and perhaps our faces told the tale as well. He asked us if everything was all right, as I began to tell him what happened. To be honest with you, he wasn't as stunned as I believe most people would have, having heard what I just said. He said that these creatures were talked about in the region, but he personally had never seen or experienced anything of the sort, although he knew others who said they had. We introduced ourselves, and out of the kindness of his heart, he said he was going to accompany us back to our campground. I told him it wasn't necessary, but he was insistent and joined us for the hike back. This guy reminded me of Davy Crockett. He had a long graying beard with a big knife on his belt, as well as a compound bow lashed to his pack. When we had reached the camp, we all settled in for some grub with our newfound friend, whose name was Elijah Stanislaw. He said that he spends weeks at a time in the woods, basically fending for himself. He also said that he had experienced and heard many strange and unusual things, including loud howls which he could not explain, but had never seen anything the likes of what we had. I think one of the craziest things about this encounter was how quickly and easily we had come upon this beast, with neither us nor it being apparently aware of the other's presence until we were virtually on top of each other. It also made us realize just how quickly an unfortunate and deadly bear encounter can occur, with virtually no time to react. If this creature had not been in front of us or hadn't stopped, he could have been on us in a split second, and had it been off the trail to our left or right-hand sides, it could have snatched us up in an instant. The creature was about 8 feet tall and 4 feet wide, having both enormous hands and feet. It was definitely a male, and it stunk like you can't believe. In fact, just a split second before it jumped out, I had gotten a whiff of it, but it was too late. Its head was recessed into its upper body, which was massive and very muscular. The face had some hair on it, but it was very sparse and scraggly in appearance. The teeth, which we saw, were stained and yellowed, being mostly square in shape, with 2 somewhat fang teeth protruding down from the top. Very similar to how a human's teeth look. To me, this was in no way a human. It simply stood on 2 legs and had eyes and a nose, but that's where the similarities end. This was, in my opinion, a large and potentially deadly animal, and I'm glad that we escaped with our lives. There you have it,
Wow,
Kevin.
that's an awesome account, Bill.
I mean, how would you like to stumble upon that coming around a little turn and a dip in the woods? Bang! You're in the middle of
man.
it, just like that.
And Bill, and our longtime listeners know I spend a lot of time hiking in the woods. Spend a lot of time out there too, in Oregon. I haven't been to Olive Lake. I got to put that on the to-do list. But and carrying, the fire extinguisher size canister of bear spray strapped to my thigh. And folks, I know my brother always says always carry more gun than you think you're going to need. But actually, with like a big grizzly bear, they say, the really good bear spray, not the stuff you buy at the sporting goods store, that's even more effective than like a handgun on a grizzly, because those grizzlies, they find people that are mauled, in the woods with an empty magazine of a 9mm and no bear, and the person's dead. So it's like the bear spray is like an expectorant, so it makes them vomit. It hurts their eyes and everything else, but it really is your last line of defense. Oh,
Yeah,
man.
yeah.
That's scary stuff.
Well, I told you, Kev, I did an interview on a podcast with a fellow whose father-in-law was hunting with another guy.
Right.
And the grizzly attacked. He got a shot off, hit it. The bear still kept coming, mauled him. The other guy that was with him shot it again.
Yeah.
And he wound up in the hospital for 30 days, and this fellow was called in, and the staff said, "We don't think he's going to make it. You better get over here." Well, he did make it. But 2 shots from a rifle at close range wasn't enough to kill it or stop it from almost killing this
They
fellow.
are massive, angry beasts, especially if you start shooting at them,
Yeah. So they have enough adrenaline or whatever you want to call it. If you don't get it, even if you get a lung shot, I think the only way you could really take it is if you hit it square in the heart.
Right.
And who knows? Who's got time to do that with something
Yeah,
charging
stay
at
still
you?
while I map out where your heart would be. Stay there. Don't move. Don't move.
Yeah.
Let me draw a little
Let
mark.
me open this
I got
manual
this Sharpie here. Let me take my Sharpie out and draw a little X.
But can you imagine walking through? And this thing, according to this couple, had a kill. Not unlikely that any creature might be standing over a kill.
Yeah.
Cougar, bear, whatever.
No, 100%. And that puts it in an aggressive stance as well, that it's protecting its kill.
Yeah, you're not taking
Yeah,
this.
I worked hard for this thing.
You even see, like, as we all have, like the lions after they take down an antelope or a gnu. They're fighting with each other as they're trying to chow down on the thing,
Yeah.
So, me first. No, I want some.
Yeah, try and take a carrot away from a Labrador Retriever. They'll come after you.
Or a tomato.
Oh, forget that.
Hey, that's
You
my
could lose
tomato.
a hand. What a great account, though.
So
And I love the description of the beast, too, like its face and, the head set into the shoulders. Classic Bigfoot descriptions.
Yeah, these things are all business, man. And, I think these are the males. Well, he said this was a male for obvious reasons, which is why in the Patty flick, she looks much different than this muscular kind of monster that we hear all too often.
Yes.
To me, the females seem to be the more barrel-looking, the uniform, kind of cylindrical body coming up from the hips.
More round-shaped. Yeah.
Yeah, just burly-like,
Yeah.
like a bear body.
Yep.
And but this thing, when you see that, like that Craven footage, Kev, you remember that up in Alberta. I mean, that thing was like freaking all business, boy.
Just cruising along.
You don't want to get in a tangle with that bad boy.
No, sir. No, sir. Just keep moving along. Nothing to see here.
Yeah. So that's it, man. Another rockin' account or some observations and cryptids in the news and other oddities, and then followed up by this Bigfoot encounter up in the Umatilla. And it's funny, I'm reading this today, and I have to ask my buddies what they know about this in Oregon. They see everywhere I talk about, they seem to have been. So there are people who are really out there, folks, and they're doing stuff that we folks in suburbia are not. And those are the facts of the matter.
Well,
they
yeah,
are
and if
out
you
there.
live out in eastern Oregon, eastern Washington, you're an outdoors person, because there's not much else out there. They're beautiful. Don't get me wrong, folks. Beautiful states, and I've lived in one of them, and I miss it. Mm-hmm. It was wonderful out there. But when you're out there, you're doing a lot of hiking and a lot of camping, a lot of fishing. Mm-hmm. You are outdoors because it is spectacular outdoors. Yeah,
now, and I was in touch with one of my buddies last night. I was working and we were going back and forth with some emails, and I was sharing some photographs with him. And he sent me a picture of a house he's building in Idaho, 1,500 feet up on the side of a mountain. And I was sending him these Bigfoot pictures, and we were going back and forth about it. And he says, like, oh, my God, I was just hiking down from the house when I got the pictures with no flashlight in the dark with my dog.
Shook him up a little.
Yeah, he had a gun. Yeah. Kudos to them. They're always carrying a weapon.
Yeah.
But, they're cut from a different piece of cloth, my friend.
Yeah. Outdoorsy, as they say.
Yeah, outdoorsy. So what do we got in our listener mail, Kevin?
Yeah, we got some good listener mail, Bill, this week. The first one comes in from Robert from Western PA, Pennsylvania. And he says, heard you on Coast to Coast. So he was out there listening, Bill. And he says, are you related to the late Dr. George A. Sheehan of Ocean Grove? If you are related to Dr. George Sheehan, let me hear from you. You may call me here in Western PA. Leave a message and the best time to call back. And I want to compare a note about Bigfoot, but also to recall the times I met some of your relatives. Thank you, Robert. So I read this one, Bill. Even though we are blood brothers, I didn't know if you had a relative that I didn't know about.
Yeah, now, Robert, I have your phone number. I got a lot of feedback from the Coast interview, and you're on my list to call. But no, we are not related to a Dr. Sheehan.
Well, that's good to hear, because if you said yes, I'd be like calling my whole life into question here.
Yeah, and obviously I want to hear about whatever Robert has to say about Bigfoot.
Absolutely.
So, pretty cool. Pretty cool.
Yep. Cool, and our next note, also related to hearing you, Bill, comes in from Carol. And the subject is your Richard Syrett show. Great interview, WJ. I accidentally discovered I could watch Richard's show on YouTube rather than on the podcast. And it was very nice to get to see you tonight as well as hear your stories. I hope he has you on again. I believe he will. Also, he's a fellow Christian, which puts him at the top of my list. Keep up the great work, Carol. Bill, you there?
Yeah, I'm here, Kev. Can you hear me?
You went silent for a minute.
No, delay of game, offense, 5-yard penalty, automatic first down.
Okay, so did you hear Carol seeing you on?
I did.
Yeah, so that's good stuff.
Yeah, I was in the middle of saying that Carol's an avid listener, and we've heard from her before. And by the way, folks, I didn't mention this. Richard Syrett also posted our interview together on YouTube.
Right. So it's a video on YouTube, Bill. I got to watch that.
Yeah, so pick it up. Richard Syrett, Strange Planet interview with W.J. Sheehan or William Sheehan. And you can see the two of us going back, me sitting at my computer and Richard in his little studio.
Very cool.
Yeah, so that's cool. So those of you who want to know what I look like, you may want to put dark sunglasses on.
I was going to say, I'm sure you got a nice, clean and tight haircut for the interview.
Oh, yeah, you know me.
Oh, that's funny. That's funny. Good stuff.
Too much.
All right, Bill. And our last email today came in from Tony. And we're going to shift gears a little bit. He says the subject is Thunderbird sighting. And he says, hi, guys. Okay. I just recently discovered your podcast, and I love it. I just listened to episode 165 where you spoke about the giant bird, and I thought I need to finally say something about my sighting. I've told friends and family for years, but never went public until now. I'll give you a brief version here of my encounter. Happy to chat further if you want to hear more. I was living in South Central British Columbia back in 2004 and had taken a weekend trip north to do some fishing and hiking. Not sure I should reveal the location. But we are a ways north of Kelowna and fishing a lake at quite an elevation. On the road back, we had spotted a couple of bald eagles flying around in a circular motion and got out of the car to watch them. After a couple of minutes, out of nowhere, an enormous bird coasted out over the mountainside. As soon as it came into view, my binoculars went black, and the two eagles we were watching took off like they were frightened. I estimate that this other bird was at least 15 feet across, and that 3 eagles could have easily fit under its wingspan. It was so big, I swear it literally felt like it could have swooped down and picked me up and carried me off, and I am a 220-pound hombre. The sighting probably only lasted about 8 to 10 seconds. It was jet black in color, never flapped its wings, and it just coasted effortlessly back and forth a couple of times and then disappeared back over the mountainside and out of view. Pretty cool, huh?
Yeah, he's not alone. People see these things.
I know, for years. For years and years, people see these thunderbirds.
Yeah. Yeah, so, and some photographs have been posted, and of course, is that real? Is it CG? I don't know. People are seeing something.
No, but I like this sighting because he stops to watch a pair of bald eagles. So you immediately have scale, right? You have something to judge it against, and you know what a bald eagle looks like, whereas somebody that never saw a bald eagle may see a bald eagle for the first time and think that thing is huge, right? Because it is. But compared to the bald eagle, it's gigantic.
Yeah, my friend out in the Pacific Northwest says they call seagulls out there eagle Twinkies. So he says the eagles out there swoop down and just take seagulls right out of the sky.
Take them out of the air.
Yeah, they just pick them off, come from above.
In our yard here in North Carolina, we have, I don't know what kind of bird it is, some kind of little falcon or something that fly around, and they pick the birds off as the songbirds, when they're flying across the yard, they'll nab them right out of the air, and it's just like an explosion of feathers.
It's unbelievable, huh?
Yeah.
I mean, nature is incredible just to behold, and that's why we look around. We see what... I always say people see something because they're looking, and we see these things because you and I are watching.
100%.
And most people, if you talk to them about that, they'd be like, wow, really, dude?
Well, of course, most people, Bill, these days are looking at their phone,
Yeah, unfortunately,
so
face down.
They never see the thunderbird that flies right over their head.
It's just incredible. I told you, I have people walking into me in the hospital.
Yeah.
They don't even realize they're so out of touch with reality. They're walking along focused on their phone, and they're running right into you. They don't even know you're coming at them.
Yikes.
That's just like ignorance.
Yeah.
But that's a story for another cryptid in the news. We should do other oddities segment on dopes with iPhones.
And by the way, we're not picking on iPhones. It could be Androids too. Pixar.
That's true. I'd actually like the
Pixels.
name Android.
All right, Bill. So that's it. A good podcast.
Wow.
Balloons, raptors, and sidewinders. Oh my! And a great Bigfoot encounter from Olive Lake, Oregon, or Oregon, as my brother says.
Oregon. Yeah, fantastic, folks. And remember, if you've seen something, say something, you can contact us at BigfootTerraInTheWoods.com. Hit the contact link and leave me some information, and I promise you I will get back to you. And by the way, Kev, there are still a ton of people out there, and I don't know what the deal is. They ask me to contact them, I reach out, and I never hear from them. So, folks,
do you leave a kind and gentle message, or do you say, hey, what the hell's going on? Why are you emailing me? If you have something to say, call me.
Yeah, call me up. Boom!
You could be scaring them. No,
my intent is to scare everybody. Anyways, listen, folks, if you find yourself hiking up to Desolation Butte or anywhere in the Umatilla mountain range, you better remember one thing. Always carry more gun than you think you're gonna need. Sleep tight, my friends.